After the prayer, all fear and panic vanished. It was as though darkness had lifted and the sun was shining. A wonderful faith was snugly wrapped around him. He looked again at his ankle, and to his surprise, the blood had stopped spurting. With confidence, he pulled himself up and started hopping over to his horse. In the dim light that remained, he could see the gaping wound on the pony's shoulder and neck. His new grip on faith had given him strength to pull himself into the saddle on his stomach. Using his elbows as equalizers, he urged the pony forward. The faithful animal seemed to feel responsible for his rider. As it stumbled on toward the ranch, and with the movement some of the stiffness subsided, the going became easier until he reached a field of stubble and furrows where the pain to both rider and horse increased. They traveled at a snail's pace, with the rider and horse trying to pick the smoothest ground where the going was less difficult, but always inching in the direction of the ranch house. About 3½ hours later, the dogs set up a commotion in the yard. Fred, his brother, who had been uneasy about his brother's long absence, hurried to the door and called out, "Who's there?" Then he heard Lawrence's voice. "Fred, I've been hurt." Fred hurried in the yard and eased Lawrence to the ground and half carried him into the house. Hazel, Fred's wife, soon got some water heated and was administering to the injured ankle. Then the Dr. Fink was called, who was a hardened old-timer with little or no faith in the unseen, bent to his work. His examination showed that the large artery had been severed, but instead of oozing blood, it was pumping a thin watery substance and air. The old doctor ripped out an oath or two, stating that in all his life he had never seen anything like it. Then he said, "That artery is supposed to be pumping blood. What's happened?" Lawrence looked up at the doctor and said, "The Lord stopped the blood when I asked for help." The old doctor mumbled something about nonsense as he fumbled in his bag for some anesthesia. Lawrence told him now that he did not want to take any medicine because it might take away the wonderful feeling that he had when he had prayed. "Go ahead and sew it up," he said. Several stitches were taken as Lawrence lay relaxed, keeping up his share of the conversation. Fred said that as he drove the old doctor back to his home, little talk went on, but that he could see the doctor shaking his head as if to say, "I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it at all." Upon returning, Fred took his lantern to the barn and did what he could for the poor Indian pony. There was a deep cut across the shoulder and lower neck, exposing the jugular vein. With the aid of some stitches, the wounds healed, but the pony was of little value after that and died within a year. Lawrence told all the details to Fred and Hazel, laying emphasis on the fear that gripped his mind that he might die upon the hill. Fred said, "I believe that mother was there and actually told me to trust in the Lord." Fred replied, "She repeated those words many times when she was alive." And incidentally, his mother had just passed away 6 months prior to that, when he was 17. Sleep did not come easily for most of the night. When Lawrence turned over in his mind the events of the past, centering on the present experience, he shuddered at the thought that he could still be laying upon the lonely hill. Surely the Lord had heard and answered his humble prayer. From now on the challenge was entirely his, and he had made that promise in good faith in a desperate moment, but it was a promise which he intended to keep. Throughout his life, Lawrence was faithful and intended to keep all the promises that he had made to the Lord there upon that lonely hill the night he felt that he was dying. And I might want to add that when I was a little girl, I loved to have my dad lower his stocking and raise his pant leg and show me that scar, and it went entirely the whole circle of his ankle. And he was truly saved, and it was always an inspirational story that he loved to share with all of us.
All right.
Is that about 10 minutes? See how long?
Yeah.
Right there.